this topic is going to be focusing in on the best ways to use social media. And what I love about social media presentations is that they can almost be, whatever I present today in 6 months, this deck will look completely different. So I'm trying to pick some things that are sort of broad themes as well as some specific examples. And as has been mentioned before, the decks will be sent out. So I'll get to some places here where I've got some examples, some AI things that relate to social media specifically. And so I'll highlight them, but they're all in the deck in terms of some of the providers. So how is the market changing? B2B versus B2C. Again, these are at super high level. If you want to talk after during the networking, you've got a very specific question about your industry, I'm happy to drill down. But broadly speaking, variances between B2B and B2C. Paid versus organic. This is one of the biggest shifts going on in the market right now, is a big movement. Shockingly, or not shockingly, I should say, they're trying to drive you towards more paid advertising. And then some overall stuff on AI. We'll have a lot more AI coming up later, but I wanted to give you just a couple of slides on AI as it relates to social media. Marketing is changing very quickly. Marketing has always changed, but marketing now is moving at a phenomenal pace. And so, I'm not even really joking when I say 6 months from now, the tools and AI has put it at an accelerated speed that I'm not even sure I fully absorbed how fast things are moving and how fast tools are changing. But I will say that the fundamentals, and this makes me feel old, but when I graduated, when I went to college, there was an 8 in the number, and then a 19 at the beginning. So the fundamentals of marketing haven't changed. You need a target customer. You need to understand where they're going, where they shop. That consumption model that I had at the beginning, that is a very, very old model. And don't forget that even though the tools are changing, the process has not changed dramatically. What does change is your options. Not just the tools are changing, but we can do things today that wasn't even conceivable before. And that's the part that I think strategy people are catching up with. So the consumer mindset is also shifting. They become more and more skeptical and much harder to convert. Attention spans are shorter. This has been a problem that has been accelerating, but with shorter attention spans, it makes it really difficult to cut through the noise and the clutter. One strategy I've seen that I have mixed reactions to is the sort of attention-getting social media. I've had some agencies say, it doesn't matter what the content is, you just got to do some crazy ad. And it's like, yeah, you still have to sell your product. And going into the Wayback Machine to my marketing classes, I had a marketing professor whose biggest pet peeve was when somebody would say, I saw the best ad. I don't remember who it was for. That is not a good ad. So if you're like, you're sharing a social media post and it's cool and it's edgy and it's got a prank in it and there's this thing and you're like, this is so funny. Who's it by? I don't know. That's so that is not a successful. That is entertainment. You have paid to entertain people, so that can be fun. That can get you. And that's not to tie it all back together a little bit here, but that goes back to what are you measuring? So it can be a tendency to say, we want engagement. I get you a really high engagement score. Trust me, it won't sell product, but I could drive a really high engagement score if that's what your objective is. So when you're setting objectives, not only for yourself, but for your agency, make sure you think through the consequences of what you're trying to drive and why. Trust is built very differently. Brand trust used to be literally, what did my parents use? Think about what laundry detergent. There's a fun poll. How many of you use the same laundry detergent your parents used? Oh, wow. That's unusual. Okay, never mind. That question, the tide is changing, so to speak. Pump. But it used to be. Oh, all right. Well, that's mostly the guys who never had to do laundry growing up. But there are some brands that you look at that generation to generation, you kind of look to the thought leader in your family. And, my dad was a Ford man, so whatever. So there's certain product categories that do get handed down. So the part of what's accelerating in marketing is this idea of where do people get their cues? Who do they trust? That has shifted. And so Authenticity is a tricky word, but social proof. Understand whose opinion do they trust? Whatever you're selling, who are they listening to? And it's not necessarily an influencer. And people buy experiences and relationships. This is really hard to test. And when you do consumer research, one of the big watchouts is people will answer you what they either think you want to hear, or what they actually might believe themselves. I've done research where you ask people, what do you feed your children? Oh, I only give them fruits and vegetables and wholesome this and wholesome that. And then we used to do research. We would then go and open their refrigerator, have them take a picture of the inside of the refrigerator and cabinets and bring it to the research. It's like, well, I see Oreos. So what people report to you and what they do and what their influences are can be very, very different. I know I'm trying to use common language of food and beverage and consumer categories because it's a common language, but it applies to every sector, B2B, B2C, is understanding those drivers. And again, a lot more here, but AI is transforming every aspect of marketing. So from automation is one of the things that's really important. Data automation are essential. This will allow companies to scale much faster. It is making people smarter, faster, and more efficient, and it's reshaping execution, personalization, predictive analytics, and as the AI gets better, it'll be harder and harder for us to know if it is or is not AI, which is good and bad. The lines between paid and organic are blurring. In fact, we had this conversation the other day. It's like, well, what exactly is paid? If you spent money on it, it's paid. People talk about or boosted organic. That's paid. But then people really get into these. Just step back, and it is a blurry line. There's things that are sort of paid and kind of organic. So don't worry about that. Again, people get really hung up on what should my mix be between. Vlad's nodding. My mix between paid and organic. It's like, if that's the question you're asking, you're not thinking about your marketing the right way. What are you trying to reach? How many of them are you trying to reach? What kind of behavior? And do you need to attach a call to action to it? Okay, so B2C and B2B in social media. Let's do a little bit of a dive into here. So not surprisingly, social media is absolutely critical to driving growth. 88% of B2B buyers use digital content in their journey, and 63% of consumers. This number actually surprised me when I pulled this up. I would have flipped it. I would have thought consumers were using social media more than B2B. But if you're in B2B, it is absolutely critical to understand that. Okay, changes. So social media is not just posting. That is 5-year-old thinking. Just post every day. I won't even, that's a whole other seminar that I could go into, but just trust me on this one. It is not just about posting every day. Content marketing is a growth engine. So really begin to understand content, and content is beginning to surpass influencers. So content generators, I work with brands where you hire a person who is just building really innovative content just for your brand, as opposed to paying money on influencers. So content becomes part of your brand experience and how people experience your brand. Customers expect tailored experiences. This again is where AI can be incredibly helpful. And especially as you start to build out your messaging that goes out through your CRMs or from whatever your databases are, this is where AI can be incredibly helpful in helping you customize your messaging. The journey has changed. We talked about the customer journey at the beginning, but the ease of doing research has made even some of the simplest product categories are now things that you could research. It used to be that if it was something like a hammer, right, you would go to a hardware store. You would first go to the first thought process is, where am I going to go shop? You're unlikely to visit 15 different stores to buy one hammer. You're going to go, where's my favorite hardware store? And then I'll select from the hammers that I have. That has flipped around. Now people can go online and look at all of the different brands and options and where do I want to buy it and who has the best price. So that's been obviously changing over time, but that is moving across all categories. Organic reach is limited, if I haven't said this enough times, but they are dialing the algorithms down. Again, unsurprisingly, they want to make more money, so they are making it harder and harder for you to reach your customer. I remember the days of trauma when Facebook suddenly started like dialing things back. It used to be in the olden days when you posted on Facebook, your entire audience saw your post. And then it like very quickly went from like everyone to like 5%. And I mean within months, they kind of dialed it back. Like, what happened? Oh, we want to charge you for that. Okay. Any questions on that? I'm going to dive a little bit into specifics on B2B and B2C. Okay. Yes. Oh, microphone.
Yeah, I have a question about the internet. I was wondering, like you said that, just really quick, like you said that they're limiting organic growth. Do you have any like numbers on that or percentages? Like I know, for example, like a small business is like under 450,000 or a million or whatever. Like, do you have any like data on how they're limiting, or is it like a casino where like at first you go well, but then like, yeah, like what do you know about that?
About how they're dialing, how the organic versus paid algorithms are changing?
How well can you succeed organically till there's a cap, or is it just consistently? For example, my business is doing pretty well with organic marketing, and so I'm like, wow, cool. Like, am I going to hit a wall at some point, or am I just kind of going to be climbing uphill?
I think of the simplest answer. I don't want to just say it depends, but this is sometimes where the value, the quality of your content can be important. You can have a purely organic piece that gets picked up by the algorithm because you think about lookalike audiences and so forth. So you can create a piece of content that is very exciting to your audience, and the algorithm will pick it up and push it out for free to other audiences because it was very compelling. And so what you're probably doing in that sense with your marketing background is you're probably creating compelling content that gets picked up and noticed more broadly. So this goes back to, now paid is paid, so you just pay for it, they're going to push it out. But organic is where that how big is big and how well is it doing. That's where getting back to the fundamentals of who is your customer, what's compelling to them, everything Angie just mentioned, that exercise that Angie just talked about, the better you know your customer and tie that to your message, and this is old fashioned, but if you have a compelling message, the organic will be broader. I don't know the exact math because they don't like really share that, but it definitely will get you more posting. So social commerce and community building, I'm just going to hit a few highlights here again in the spirit of time, but short form video at the moment. So let me just it's kind of like those things like they say with fortune cookies, where you add a little phrase at the end of every fortune cookie, but short form video is king at the moment. So check back in 6 months. Content creators, influence marketing, and users generating user-generated content. I'm seeing a big uptick in user-generated content at the moment. Part of that is filling the gap. That is that authenticity that we talked about earlier, that there's a big pushback on influencers who aren't actually influencers or don't have any influence. So people are now more and more craving authenticity at the moment. And so they're relying more on user-generated content until the next thing comes along. Private communities, you mentioned Discord, those are definitely seeing an improvement. I think part of the reason those are improving is actually because they've fixed some of their metrics. I did advertising on Reddit like 4 years ago, and it was terrible. It should have been great, but they had the worst, like, I don't know, I would see my ad show up in the strangest places. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it was like the results were very poor. So I think part of the reason those communities are doing better is because they've suddenly realized they need to do a lot better with their targeting metrics. Have you had a similar experience? Okay. You were nodding. So yeah. So basically, they've improved the quality of. Yeah, they've improved the quality of their products, so now they're a viable place to market. I am. Let's see if I want to hit any of these. This was the take-home slide. I'm not going to read through all of these points, but basically some platform priorities for B2C at the moment, and what types of content tend to work across those platforms. Okay, B2B marketing. This is really about thought leadership and personal branding. I mean, this won't be surprised to anybody. LinkedIn is the #1 platform, but there are a lot of emerging platforms coming out that are finally putting up competition to LinkedIn. We'll see who wins, but I'm surprised how long it took for that. But there's some movement there. But generally speaking, LinkedIn is still the biggest piece. Founders should be active. Personal branding is a really big deal. Now, if you are, as a founder, just terribly camera shy, not the right face of the brand, I encourage you to get someone on your team that can be the face of the brand, that can, speak from a knowledgeable standpoint. Or this is where partnering with an expert content creator in your field who is a brand fan is a great person to come on, and be that proxy resource, if you will. But the brand being tied to a person is really, really critical. Webinars, a lot of this stuff, the B2B world, the last thing I will say about this is, even though it's B2B, sometimes people drop all the rules and they think, when you're doing consumer, that's exciting, entertaining, fun, cool. You build a connection. B2B can sound, like your 8th grade geography class to some people. I didn't like geography, incredibly boring. So you remember that you're still selling to people. Remember that in B2B, it's a different kind of excitement, but still remember to make it entertaining, interesting, educational. Like you still need to build those connections. The rules apply. It's just the tone and the content changes. And again, here's the tiny little slide with lots of advice, but basically some B2B platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter's kind of depends on what your message is. I am seeing a lot more on Instagram. That's kind of exploded with B2B. If you're on Instagram a lot and you scroll through, there's a ton of B2B. So if you have a easy to understand service type business and you're trying to drive and a paid, Instagram has been doing really pretty well with B2B recently. Okay. Paid versus organic. I have paid versus organic and then AI, and then we'll jump to questions. I want to make sure we stay on time. But paid versus organic. Is organic dead? No, but it's definitely harder. Paid is now a necessity. And I won't say it's for 100% of businesses. Somebody always invariably says, I don't do any paid, and it works for me. But it's getting more and more rare that you can just put up organic posts every day and have it do anything for you. So organic social post reach is down 90% versus 5 years ago. This is not a number people like to see, but let that sink in. And that is predominantly due to a couple of factors, but mainly dialing back the algorithms because they really want you to pay. Social media algorithms prioritize paid comment. So broadly speaking, looking at paid or boost. So here's kind of a cycle that I broadly think of. Organic to me has two functions. It is a great place to test a prospective message because you're predominantly reaching your existing audience. So if you're like, oh, I wonder if we should feature and talk about that we're blue. I wonder if that's interesting to people. Well, you do organic posts that are reaching your existing audience and see if your current user is engaging with that message, and that'll give you a clue. So that's step one. Then boost it. Now you go outside of your existing audience and start to see, are other people reacting to it? And the third step, once you identify a winning message through organic boost, then jump out there and do a paid campaign behind that. That is a very nice sequence where you're using organic almost like market research to test messages. The other thing to think of with organic is you still want to remember that back in the previous presentation we talked about relationship. This is where you continue to build fun and engagement and just stay top of mind. You live and die by your brand every day, but your consumer, even your loyal consumers, will forget about you. So using organic to just stay top of mind, stay there, get referrals, just it's like weeding your garden, if you will.
Hey, Greta, can I add something on this?
Yes, please.
Kind of tying back together to Angie and customer discovery. When you take her class, you learn there's also customer discovery once you're up and running, not just when you're writing your business plan, but continuous basis, because the problem with social media, as explained to me by a Google rep I spend $3 million a year with, is that 10% of social media users are clicky. They like to click on things. Doesn't mean they buy anything. They're not your actual customers. Your actual customers may be walking right by those posts and not clicking because they don't like the algorithm figuring out what they want, and they're only going to see the same thing over and over again. So more and more, part of the reason social reach is down is that the algorithms can't really figure that out. You need to do all the traditional means of customer discovery, including your existing customer base, and target accordingly. But if you rely just on the algorithms and figuring that somebody who's engaging with your content because you did something cute, so they're engaging with it, but they're not necessarily the customer. That's a big misleading factor in the algorithms, right? And so you got to kind of not rely so much on the engagement metrics. Rely on if you have data all the way through to who actually bought. That's really tough to get. Connect your Facebook and Instagram ads to Google ads to your sales results, right? It's really, really tough to do that, but that's kind of what you need to do to avoid this problem.
Great. Oh, microphone. I'm clearly not in the consumer electronics industry. Step up to the camera and speak into it.
How do newer brands use your strategy? I mean, organic, then boosted organic, and then paid makes sense.
Right.
But when you're a new brand, your followership or your engaged audience itself is probably 2 digits, low 3 digits. Organic posts have a reach of 5%. If you're gauging on the basis of 500, that you've shown it only to 25 people, and you gauge an engagement rate on the basis of that to decide whether you'll boost it or not. I mean, I get that strategy for established brands.
Right.
I'm not sure how to apply that for newer brands.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things companies do out of the gate is they will do a lot of fun organic posts just to build up people that are just generally interested in the product. So organic can be a great audience building. Some of the stuff that, engage, click here, pick your favorite cake, and, a lot kind of stuff that first 90 days of marketing is building people that are at least stopping and liking. You're just gathering your audience and building people for your organic post to continue to attract. And this it's patience. I don't know if that's the term that startups like to hear, but you have to start to build enough of your audience. There are some tools that we could talk about more in AI where you can look at your competitors, look at their messaging, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and just sometimes it's just doing some research on the competitive market and seeing people when you see your competitors using themes, calls to action, et cetera, and they've been around longer than you can start with the assumption that they have already gone through the learning curve. So if you see, for example, many of my competitors are running a contest or they're doing, half off, they're doing free delivery. It isn't a perfect mechanism, but it gives you a clue as to what might work for you, at least as a starting point. Did that answer your question, Divya?
Yes.
Sort of?
And then just one for the previous slides. How would you truly differentiate a content creator from an influencer, or is it just the new coin?
So it's another good question. So there's an A and B and a C. So A is, influencers are people that have large audience. They can be good at content, but they tend to be much more about selling who they know and their size of their audience. Then there are content creators. I've hired content creators who are brilliant content creators that have literally 0 followers. I am using them to create engaging content for they're like a spokesmodel for the brand. They may have some connections, but their primary business is their ability to create, and they know their audience, and they're able to engage in their audience. I think the woman that we used in the campaign there are some people that are very good at both. And a lot of the influencers that I think are going to shake out are the ones that are good at both. They don't just have a big audience. They also know their audience and they're able to connect with them. I would still consider someone to be primarily an influencer if what they're selling you is I have 50,000, 100,000, 1 million followers, and I'm good in generating a content. That is a influencer who's good at reaching his or her audience. But content creators tend to be somebody that you would hire that might be a subject matter expert or is well known in the industry, that is going to be and is well spoken and can represent the brand. So if you had somebody who is like a famous baker, a pastry chef, who's going to come on board, they may have followers, but they're not an influencer particularly in your arena. They just have people that like to hear what they have to say. It's fuzzy. It's a continuum like everything else in marketing. Great question. Okay, I'm going to just hit a few of these, then we'll come back to some questions just to stay on time. So organic does still matter. Search traffic is a critical piece, and Ron stepped out of the room, but Ron is a master of SEO. I always take my hat off to, like, if I'm like with SEO, I always kind of go back and get his opinion on it. So the search engine SEO, there is interesting. The new AI powered search features are starting to change the dynamics in this market a little bit. So I've kind of put a pin in this one and see in 6 months what's going on and how people are searching, and that's changing. Search used to be keyword searches, and now it's like it's not. So we're still learning what's going the impact of AI on searches. And here's another one where Discord, Reddit, again, I think these guys are just dialing up the quality of their product from community to marketing platform. So if you're not on these platforms, there's a couple different ways to engage with them. Get an intern and have them search and jump into conversations. You know, you can find interest. That's actually a great way to find influencers, is to get on these platforms, literally get an intern, nephew, anybody who's just really into it, and have them start jumping into conversations for an afternoon, and building dialogues and finding people. Inviting them to follow you, etc. Old, kind of going back to everything old is new again. Okay. Any questions on that before we jump into some? Well, actually, let me do the AI stuff. Then we'll go back to the end because I want to stay on track. But if you have a question, write it down. Hold on to it. So AI is a game changer for startups. And I think that we've had almost a pendulum swing. When AI came out, it was like, oh my God, they're going to, we won't need agencies anymore. It's all going to be ad generators. And then there were like 1,000 ad generators hit the market. And it was like, oh, hey, that looks like an AI generated ad. Why does that person have 6 fingers? So there's some problems. But even I would make the argument that even if the ad generators became perfect, it is not the end. Because you still ultimately, even if it is an agent, it'd be the same as just going to an agency and saying to them, make me some ads. Like, just because AI exists does not mean we get to abandon strategy. AI is like having a junior employee that can help you do a lot of the digging or the work or the analysis that maybe you're skipping over because you don't have 5 whole days to go out and do a full-blown competitive assessment of your marketplace before you start building strategy. So you kind of do what you can. So in marketing, we tend to make a lot of compromises to what time we have to go do the things that we all were told in school we should do. Here's your list of 400 questions you should ask, and here's your proper business strategy. These things can help speed the process along. So AI for smarter, faster marketing. It removes the guesswork from marketing by analyzing patterns, automated decisions, and optimizing campaigns in real time. So testing headlines, images, call to action, and reallocating budget to the best performing ads. So AI can help a lot with this, reduce waste, improves ROI. AI for content generation. Yes, it's there, but it's usually good to have it maybe do a starting point and generate some ideas that your agency can spin off of. And AI-driven personalization, there's a lot of tools out there that help you with that. Chatbots and virtual assistants. I put it on here because people use it. I'm not a big fan of these, but especially in B2B, it can be a very handy tool if you don't want to miss a possible lead at 3 o'clock in the morning. Automate what matters. So startups don't have unlimited time and resources. So being able to automate things, you want to find the right balance between personalization and automation. So automate where you can automate. I think about thinking about a funnel, automate earlier and get more personal as they move down the funnel. If you have to choose, blast out your broad automated message, cast a wide net, you catch a fish, they react to the second post, decide when in your sales cycle you're going to jump in and get much more personal. Social media scheduling has gotten better, and predictive lead scoring has gotten better. So just really sit down and think about where you want to automate, where it makes sense, and find the big message here is figure out where you need to personalize and where you would prefer to automate. AI is only as powerful as the data it works with. I will have people argue with me and continue to argue with me. It's still some level of what is it trained on? It is incredible at building relationships and finding patterns. And I know that some of the guys that are going to speak later this afternoon have some fantastic tips on how to feed your AI, how to train your new AI pet to do new tricks for you. But it is really important, not only just the data that's fed in, it's really important to think about queries. If you're a marketer, I would encourage you to take some classes, or, it's really fun. You can ask AI, if I'm going to write, if you're going to ask it a question, ask it what questions you should answer to allow it to do its job better. That it'll tell you exactly what it needs to know. Sentiment analysis and social listening. I'm really excited about this. There's a lot of tools out there that do scraping and social listening, but predominantly they were using keywords to try to predict, was this a positive review or a negative review? And it was just using words and natural language processing, but it wasn't really couldn't really interpret. And I think AI is much better now at helping understand and identify positive and negative feedback. And AI-powered SEO optimization. Do you want to add, you stepped out, we're talking about SEO a little bit. Is there anything you want to talk about with AI and SEO that you've seen? Or, Ron, sorry, I know you were the SEO expert. Okay, all right. Got it. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we talked about that one. I just want to kind of gauge my time. Okay, we only have 2 more slides, and then we'll jump into some questions. So B2C, personalization, retarget, hyper-personalization, dynamic product recommendations, custom landing pages. I mean, it used to be that you had 2 or 3 landing pages based on call to action. Now there are tools that can allow you to have almost infinite pages, and as AI generators become better, it could actually generate things on the fly and customize every single message, which will get kind of exciting. Some latest tools, ChatGPT, of course, we know, TrendSpotter AI, and then I wanted to point out we've got a company that I'm working with that's actually here that flew in from Singapore, Archit Anand. I was just wave to the folks. Full disclosure, I'm on his board of advisors, but Archit's company is a very unique AI tool that helps to take your ads, and instead of just saying this ad worked and this ad didn't, it breaks it down into every element, the call to actions, colors, music, every single element, and says this music works, that music doesn't work. This call to action works, that one doesn't. And so it really drills it down and then builds up. Essentially, the AI says this is what your ultimate ad should include. And so it builds a framework or a template to optimize individual ad components, not just ads. So if you're into that, feel free to catch them during the networking time. And then B2B, AI-driven ad generation. There's a lot of tools on here. This is more for you guys to take afterwards if you're in the B2B space. I put up some of my favorite tools for lead generation and webinar repurposing. So everybody will get these slides. I see lots of phones out click, click, click. Trust me, I promise, unless you snuck in here off the street and we don't have your email, you will get a copy of these slides. Okay. All right. So we have questions and then break. So anybody have any?
We got one in from the internet from
All right.
Charlotte. She has an interesting experiment. Any thoughts on searching your own product or service as AI continues to learn?
Searching your own product or service, as in?
Says,
Can Can you is there an exact question? Maybe I just get the context.
Your thoughts on searching your own product and service, the equivalent of Googling yourself,
Yeah.
as AI continues to learn and get better. Do you have any thoughts on that experiment, as she puts it?
Sure. Go ahead. Do it. No, I mean, so I'm gonna guess that is. I mean, if you want to understand how you're being thought of, you could certainly set something and ping yourself once a month, like, tell me what the market is talking about with my product. I guess the same way you might Google yourself, but like these AI now, especially I've switched over from using Google as my search to AI to a search, and it's great. And so that can be a great thing where it may be an exercise where you kind of search yourself every month. I mean, it's the same thing as Googling yourself, I guess, unless if I'm missing her question, have her respond.
She expands as AI learns, then delivers more and more relevant results. The 2.0 of Googling yourself, I think, is what she's getting.
Yeah. I mean, for the same reasons you would Google yourself, it's just a more amplified way to learn more about what people think about you, for sure. Yeah. I mean, but then again, you'll just see. It depends on it depends on what's feeding it. Yeah. So, have her send her email. I'm happy to follow up with her afterwards. I don't know if I'm answering her question. It's hard to get to, but we'll move on. And then if I'm missing it, I'm happy to help afterwards. Yes. Don't be afraid. One mic, no waiting.
Can you expand a little bit more on the community building part? I've tried some community building things, and they've kind of fallen flat.
How long did you spend working on your community?
Well, I've been inviting people to my live stream, which I've been doing for about a year.
Yeah.
Weekly live stream. And so that's been about a year. And then we've had a Reddit forum for about a year.
So I would think about your community as a little bit like when you have guests over to your house, or if you own a restaurant and you invite them in and you offer them something and you make them feel comfortable. I mean, it's an experience. And so what could you do to make them feel interested? Do they want to feel heard, for example? So then I would put surveys out there, even if you know the answer. Ask them questions. What's that? Yeah, yes. That is, I think, the answer to about 25% of the questions ever asked at Venture Mechanics are come to customer discovery. But absolutely using that, I was going to say too, is that process of the same things you would say in customer discovery is also use the same questions and process to continue to mine and develop the customer. It's not just something you do at the beginning of the process. And that could be a new class, Angie, like how to customer, engagement, community. There we go. Yes.
So I got a pretty simple question for you, but what are the things people shouldn't do on social media with their new business or personal brand as they're just starting out?
Oh boy. That's a really good question. I think something I touched on earlier is that tendency to go for kind of the cheap laugh, right? I mean, there are, and we've seen them. There's posts I've gotten sucked into, puppies, babies. I mean, there's things you can put out there that'll guarantee you put a sick golden retriever on your post and you're going to get 100,000 likes, or whatever. It's just, there are gimmicks. And I'm not saying they're always wrong. There are moments if you have a gimmick and then the gimmick is going to take you somewhere and it's like it's a setup and there's a reason for doing that you're making a natural transition to, then great. But otherwise, it's got to tie back to, not tying it back to the brand and skipping over some of that discipline of who's your customer, where do they go, where are they shopping, and just jumping right into what's cool. The second mistake I think people make is jumping onto the latest, coolest platform or feeling like they need to be everywhere. Yes, TikTok was like exploding at one point. It does not mean that TikTok was right for every single brand. And so those are probably, I would say, it's probably like going gimmicky and not jumping on the latest thing or the latest platform. Yes. Oh, Mike.
Face.
Yep.
But don't be fake. Be as authentic as you can. Trying to create. And you by the way, who are you? Showcase to the customer. People you are trying to sell to most likely have the same interest in the same field that you're in. So if you're trying to fake it, they can see straight through it.
Yeah. And like with your audience, Michelle, admit a mistake. I thought this, but then we thought that. Hey, go reach out to the audience like, hey guys, we're not getting the kind of excitement we thought we would get. What can we do to make this better for you? I mean, just sort of opening up to people. That the social media allows us to have some of those, really honest dialogues. And people want to help you. Believe it or not, when you show vulnerability or, kind of like your soft underbelly, if you will, people go, oh, well, I'll, now they're engaged because now they're like, well, I want to help you. Most people, like 75% of people like to help other people. Sign up to be a mentor too, by the way, if you'd like to be would like to help people. We do sign up mentors. Yes. We have time for like one more, I think maybe after this.
This one's also a comment. If you're on something like Reddit or Discord, and I do have experience with this, try to keep the conversation going. Obviously, you want it to go in a direction where they're engaging about your product and stuff.
Right.
But also, I mean, they're kind of, I wouldn't say you're friends, but they are people you're friendly with. And you want them to feel like that they're part of a community that enjoys the thing that you're giving, that you're producing for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just keep
definitely.
the conversation going.
Definitely. Absolutely. It's a great comment. Yes, Anita. So Anita has a very cool new product coming out. Ask her about it. She's building a beautiful line of cosmetics, soap, skincare based on turmeric. So, yes.
I have a quick question for you. This is regarding paid advertisement and coming back to organic. My personal experience has been, once you do a paid campaign, you are, ruined. It's like it's very hard to come back, no matter how awesome.
Ruined to your audience or ruined because you'll never go back? Like, what do you mean?
No. Ruined in the sense, from a business standpoint, because the algorithms have now put you in a different bucket. They know you're somebody who's going to spend
Sucker?
the money. Yeah, you're going to spend the money to grow your audience, and no matter what you do, your ads, your content is not going to show up. What's your advice on that? That's been a personal experience of mine, and I hear that from everybody. Right? How do you avoid that? So, initially when you launch a brand,
Right.
you have this urge to grow the base. You will, if you take the paid approach,
Right.
then you're committing yourself to, growing these multi-billion-dollar companies, and they're never going to give you anything for free. What's your thought on that? Yeah, they just
Right. Those
it's
jerks.
a very-
What are you going to do? You have some thoughts on that, Ron?
Yeah, sometimes you stand around in your kitchen and you mention something, and then suddenly you see an ad for that
Yeah.
thing, and you say, "Oh, my Alexa's listening to me." No, this is just actually coincidental, right? It's not like nefarious back there. I have not heard that. I have not seen that that there's any impact on one or the other. I have seen the opposite on Bing for many years, and it's been a year and a half since I ran anything on Bing, but there seemed to be a definite correlation of spending money, getting more ranking on natural search. They deny it, but I tested it again and again and again, and it seemed to have a direct correlation. This, again, a year and a half ago, things change. But the other thing you can do is separate your brand as the founder from the company brand. You run the ads as the company, then you do your social media posts as the founder of that company. And so you're the two algorithms.
But that's fine. That's most normal way to look at it. But from a business standpoint, especially if you're a founder that's not too social, then especially if you're a founder that's not very vocal, that doesn't have the
We're
following.
going to be Johnny Cash. And, we're gonna
June
do that.
Carter.
Okay.
So no, I'm just talking about that's not an issue for me, by the way. But for people where they're not personally growing their
Right.
Many founders are very shy. They don't want to be. They don't want to have any presence online, but they want their business brand to be online and benefit from
They can still do audio podcasts even if they don't. They have a great face for radio, right? Just saying, audio podcasts, you don't have to worry about.
So anyway, it's a challenge for
No, I mean,
startups, right?
it's an interesting question. I'm like Ron. I've seen it work both ways. I have not really, to be completely honest, I've seen more where the more I spend, the more organic traffic I get. So it may be more platform specific, like Instagram, unless they radically changed their model that I was struggling to get. I got absolutely nothing. The algorithm didn't love me. If I didn't drive traffic there, did nothing. The minute we started leaning in with a client on paid, I was starting to get all over the place on organic. And then what really worked was we had this one ad that just became incredibly viral, and it had just broad appeal just across multiple markets. So I mean, it kind of goes back to, like, if you have the right ad, it'll break through. So get the organic ad and boost it, maybe back off of paid and do more boosted organic, and then your organic picks up as, oh, they have cool organic. I don't know. Change it up, pulse, move to other platforms.
I would first suspect something else is going on.
Yeah.
And keep analyzing. I don't think there's that direct a tie. There's always coincidences because you're doing lots of other things
Right.
with marketing at the same time. It's hard to isolate.
Play hard to get.
Yeah.
Stop spending for a month or two. I believe you. I really do. When I don't, I haven't seen it. And Lou, we got two people shaking their heads that yes, they have. Has anybody else seen that does social media?
100%. Everybody, yes.
Okay.
If you've had a brand page, you will know. It's like, they
Okay.
have
No,
a
I
plan
mean,
to
just
do
saying
that.
we got. No, I get it. You guys definitely have had that experience. I've had the opposite experience, so I think that it could be dependent on. I mean, it could be. It depends. So anyway, we're at the. Oh, we're. Yeah.
Also, because to that specific
Yeah.
thing, I've used that for clients back in Europe where we paid for Instagram boost.
Yep.
And then we get like a certain amount of reach or a certain amount of followers. And then we go back to like, okay, we're not organic posts are not pushing anymore. So we changed strategies. We bought boosted posts
Yep.
on platforms we don't push on.
Right.
So for example, we didn't push on YouTube. So we pushed a boosted post on YouTube
Yep.
to redirect them to our Instagram where our most organic posts are. That's what we started realizing more of our strategies more because that is a real thing. But it doesn't happen for everybody. It is pick and juice, but it happens more than people
No,
want.
that's an interesting thing. Use one platform to drive people over to a different platform. That's a good idea. And just, change up your message. Look at your content. So it, could be try different messaging. So yes, I think we're at our break time. Break time.